Her story deals with a subculture of heavy metal music that some feel is sending a dangerous message to your kids.
The forces of evil on the dark side of devil rock.
And I want to talk tonight about the devil and demons and witches and wizards.
And we just mix it up with hardcore and aggression and come out with something we think is an original sound.
Loud, fast, heavy, you know.
Well, what do you got?
What do you got?
You're listening to Riff Worship, the podcast that attempts to answer the age-old question, what makes a riff? Why do we care about riffs? Sometimes talking to people who make really great fucking riffs. I'm your only host today, Austin Paulson, with a voice that just sounds miserable, coming off a little bit of a cold, but I do have a very special guest with us. He's a riff disciple based in the London area. His band Vacuous has just released this incredible record, In His Blood. It's out now through Relapse Records. I'm, of course, talking about Michael Brodsky, Vacuous. How are you, man?
I'm good. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
You know, just kind of doing like a little bit of research on this, you get a taste for how a record can sit for quite a long time. And, you know, you might not see the light of day for a little while. It sounds like In His Blood has been sitting for maybe a couple of years. And, you know, give me a little bit of a backstory on that. Maybe like 2023.
So 2023, we were writing and sort of rehearsing the records. And I guess this is public knowledge by now, but our singer Joe actually got really unwell with some mental health stuff. So he kind of had to step away from the band for a bit. And we had like a bunch of touring planned for September, I think it was, that essentially we were like, yeah, we ended up just pulling the plug on it. And we're like, okay, well, we've got this time that we've all like blocked out. We've all taken time off work. We've got these songs that we're feeling pretty good about. Let's like book the studio time for that. So we did like the instrumental tracks in September 2023. And alongside that, Joe started kind of getting back on his feet, and I think he recorded his vocals, I want to say like early January last year. And then, yeah, we were kind of in that position, like we knew the material had taken us in a slightly different direction. And not that we had any issues with the labels that we'd worked with before, Dark Descent, Misako Novo, like both great labels, like still a huge fan of them. But it was like, we knew we wanted to shop around because we knew it wouldn't sit as well with just a traditional death metal label. So yeah, then the Relapse thing ended up happening, and that's a completely new world to us of like, you know, signing an actual record deal and signing a contract and getting a lawyer to look at it. So like that obviously took time. But yeah, so pretty much, and then them having to slot us into their busy release schedule. So yeah, all of last year was pretty much spent sitting on the release.
I love the idea of like a lawyer going through like, yeah, I'm here to represent Vacuous and In His Blood, just like all of like the...
Yeah, it was, to be fair, it was pretty like casual because we like joined this group called Mythology, who are also our booking agents, but they do a bit of like management. And that's not like, we don't have like a manager, like a big dude with a cigar being like, all right, kids, like I'm going to make you the next big thing. But it's just like, you know, they kind of just help us run the band, and they reviewed the contract for us. And yeah, that was not, I mean, not that Relapse would have been trying to like screw us over or anything, but you know, it's just like, it's still, for a band like us, it's a huge step up. So you just don't want to do anything dumb.
Oh yeah, you got to look out for yourself for sure. I mean, with all that said, you know, now that it's out there, I'm sure you've played these songs to death at this point. How does it feel? I'm sure like a weight off your shoulders.
Yeah. And like the thing is, like last year when we were just sitting on the record, we booked a tour for ourselves, and we were just like, are we going to keep playing our old stuff? And like, nah, fuck it. Like I think we played like half the album before it was out. And now I think we're just going to play the whole thing on our upcoming tour. But yeah, it feels good. I think like we definitely feel a lot closer to this material than anything that came before, not take away from it. But yeah, it's like you talk to people at shows, and obviously they only have the vision of you as what your latest record is, and there's always that disconnect. And we're kind of having it now again because we started working on our next album, and everyone's talking about In His Blood, and we're like, well, we've actually like evolved a bit more, and we're actually this other band, but us as this now.
Yeah. I mean, I think, just from my own personal experience with the record, I feel like you can definitely hear that you guys put your heart and soul to it. I mean, you kind of hearing you talk about this tumultuous time with some of the members, Joe, I mean, right out of the gate, it's a scream. Like he certainly seems like he channeled that through. And, I mean, you put your body on the line. If I read correctly, you're on the actual front cover of it, right, too?
Yeah, that's me. Well, like, I guess if you've seen the physical version, so the front cover is like the pool of blood, which is actually soy sauce, and the back cover is me laying in that soy sauce.
What did you ever think? I mean, when you're just like laying up and looking at them like, hell yeah, this is like, I made it. Like, this is good. Like, what does it feel to get dumped with soy sauce?
It was a really cool experience. I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with like just commissioning someone to like draw a sick thing, like, dripping zombie or whatever for your album, but just like getting to be really hands-on with it felt really cool. And we got to work with Oscar Foster Kane, who's the photographer, and he had just lots of ideas. So we ended up kind of breaking into this outhouse that's in the middle of a cemetery, like somewhere in East London. And it's like this derelict building that I guess homeless people had lived in throughout the years. Like, it was boarded up, and we like unscrewed the boards. In like one corner of the room, there was just like this pile of shoes of like someone who'd obviously just like, yeah. And like sneakers, but also like dress shoes and stuff. It was just really weird. And yeah, just, I was like, I'm fine with being the body, but I'd rather not get soy sauce all over my skin. So like Joe just taped me up in like a mix of cling film and masking tape, which is what you see on the back of the records. We didn't intend for me to be part of it, but then we were just like, this is so weird and disgusting that let's just go with it.
How many bottles do you think you went through?
It was just one actually, but Joe was working in a kitchen at the time, so I mean he's left that job, so his boss doesn't care. But like it was like an industrial size, like a gallon or whatever size bottle of soy sauce.
It's a very like, visceral like image looking at, the full cover of it. I mean, I was not familiar with your band prior to this release, but that's like you're instantly you're locked in on it. Are there any covers that maybe, I know this is maybe like not to put you on the spot, but are there any covers like that you maybe picked up of an album where you're like, I got to get this just based on the cover? That's kind of how I had the experience I had with your record.
Yeah, I mean, the tons of them. I mean, I'm from a generation where I discovered music kind of in an analog way. I'm just trying to think of one that I remember Harmony Corruption, picking that up because I was like, this cover looks sick. Did not sound at all like what I was expecting or hoping for at the time. Sure. But yeah, no, 100%. Like it's super important. You don't want to judge a book by its cover, but like that's what people will see first and foremost. And I think with this one, like the music took a shift to being more direct. Like you're saying, right off the bat, you get Joe screaming in your face. We kind of wanted the album cover to have that same tone of just being like, here it is,
Yeah. Kind of touching on that a little bit. I'm assuming we're maybe the similar age. I'm 31. I don't know how old you are.
Yeah, I'm 33 this month.
Perfect. Let's take a step back. There's a lot I want to ask you about this record, but if I'm not mistaken, you're not from London. You're not from England in general, correct?
No, as you could probably tell. So yeah, my parents are both American, but I grew up in France. So I lived there until I was 18, and then I moved to the UK in 2010 and been here on and off since.
Did you grow up in like a pretty musical household, or were you just finding stuff on your own?
I guess my mom would listen to music from like her generation. She's like a, hippie generation. So, The Who, Jimi Hendrix, that kind of stuff. So I guess I was always drawn to guitar-based music. But yeah, I ended up finding that through when I got into skating, and it was just like whatever, I guess pop punk, new metal, or whatever was on skating videos and the Tony Hawk soundtrack and all that
absolutely.
stuff.
What's I had Four and Underground, and I thought those were like unreal. Like, yeah.
2 was the one that got me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's hear it. What's the first record you ever got?
I bought with my own money. That would have been like Iron Maiden. I think it was called Edward the Great. It was like a greatest hits collection. So I discovered them through Tony Hawk because they had Number of the Beast on that, and I was like, oh, Iron Maiden, and I was like, their artwork just looked really cool and appealed to me at the time. I can't say I went on to be like a massive fan. My brother was like a huge Iron Maiden fan, but still,
Yeah, my brother and I, we were big on Somewhere in Time. We love that record.
That's probably my favorite too. Yeah,
it's wild, but it's also cool, and I'm sure this will come up. The fact that you guys, I'm sure, bonded on a lot of that stuff, and then channeling it into your project, Thundering Hooves, which I love this record a lot. And then going back, and I'm like, oh my God, this reminds me of like, the black metal that I got into later, but like also my love for like more traditional stuff like Judas Priest and like some of those like Iron Maiden harmonies are crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was kind of my adolescence. Like, we definitely started off on like the more traditional stuff, obviously Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, and Metallica. And it wasn't until like, I think Slayer for me was the turning point into like, okay, I'm actually more interested in the extreme stuff.
First show? Anybody come through France?
Yeah, well, I went to shows with my mom when I was really young. I went to see Santana on the Supernatural tour.
Nice. Hell yeah.
So, there's some bangers on that album, not gonna lie. But first show I went to see like of a band I was into would have been Pearl Jam in like 2006. They just released the Avocado album, whatever it's called. I think it's self-titled. But yeah, first heavy show though was Motorhead. Shortly thereafter. Yeah.
Do you remember when that was?
It was it would have been 2006, 2007. So they just put out Kiss of Death.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. And like, it was my first, contact with the like metal in real life, and just like seeing bikers and skinheads and all that, and it was just like, wow.
On the topic of riffs, even was there a riff in particular, or like, when did you start playing guitar? And maybe like, what were the first riffs that you were like, I have to learn how to play this?
So like when I first wanted to play guitar, I don't think my brain was thinking in riffs yet. It was like I was just really drawn to the sound of a distorted guitar and like just the sort of the volume and like the thickness of it. But I remember like when I did end up getting a guitar, so I asked my parents, can I get an electric guitar? And they're like, no, start with acoustic, stick with it for a year, and then we'll see. But one that I learned really early on was TNT by AC/DC. Super simple. And yeah, again, back to the Tony Hawk soundtrack. I'm pretty sure that's on there.
Yeah, you're right. But yeah, I think, a lot of people would have a similar kind of experience as well. But when it clicks and you're like, oh my God, I'm Angus Young. Like,
yeah, exactly. I mean, he played the same 3 chords for his whole career, Why can't I?
These projects that you're working on, it sounds like these are maybe more of like the first, I don't want to say like serious band, but maybe like the first bands where you dedicated a lot of your time. Were you playing in any projects beforehand, or was it mostly for fun? What sorts of music were you making prior to Vacuous or Thundering Hooves?
So, I mean, I was in bands when I was a teenager. Nothing really amounted to much. I joined a black metal band when I was about 13 years old. And I had no business being in a black metal band at that age. Because I was listening to Slayer, Sepultura, Pantera,
Yeah.
and met these kids at the skate park who were like, "Oh, you play guitar? We need a guitar player. You like heavy stuff?" And I was like, yeah, I like heavy stuff. And they're like, "Okay, learn these Dark Throne and Mayhem covers." And I was like, "This sounds really bad. Is it meant to sound like, you know?" But so it's kind of like baptism by fire, but it sort of like showed me at an early age like how raw and extreme this music could be. So I kind of had a love-hate thing with black metal for a while after that. But yeah, then I just kind of ended up going to university, getting a job, and like music was always important to me, and I always wanted to do it more seriously, but just kind of didn't prioritize it. Daniel, my brother, and I, we still kind of kept that connection that when we'd meet up at Christmas, we'd jam. Like he started playing drums shortly after I started playing guitar, so in my dad's attic, like we jam but we never really recorded anything or took it that seriously. But we were just like we kept it up throughout the years, and then it must have been like 2016 or 17 at one point. We're like, oh, how about we actually start writing some stuff? And actually, some of that stuff. So Thundering Hooves has 2 albums, and the stuff that is on the first one, Vestiges, has actually been around for like a really long time. It's only when like Vacuous became a thing that I figured out how to record at home and how to, put an album together.
It sounds great. Like going back, and I mean, like, like I think Radiance was the first one I listened to. And I was like, this sounds like fucking awesome. So did you recorded that yourself and then went through Ben Jones?
Yeah. So yeah, recorded it at home. And then Ben sort of like reamped and mixed and mastered. I knew Ben because he used to play in a band called Mortuary Spawn, who Vacuous actually have a split out with. And I guess he's mixed and mastered some of Vacuous' stuff as well. He plays in a band called Pest Control now.
Yeah, blowing up. Good for them. I'm happy for them. Their last record sounds fucking awesome. I mean, I do like that though. I mean, I'm sure you guys had outside of being brothers, you guys just understand where each other come from. You're listening to the same things. But I was really blown away by it, and it really scratched that itch, because I mean, there's a million bands, that I don't have to name, but that do the classic thing, and they just like, we're gonna wear tight pants and put the battle jacket on, and we're just gonna make exactly that. But I felt like it had a very unique interpretation of that, and mixing some different things as well. I did like the beginning of the record with like the battle as well. It seems like samples are kind of like definitely your forte here on a couple different things as well.
Yeah, the sample at the beginning of Radiance, that was kind of like a tongue-in-cheek thing, because the name of the band, Thundering Hooves, actually comes from an Acid Witch song off the album. They're called Stoned. They've got a song called Thundering Hooves, and I was like, this is cool. And I'm pretty sure they're talking about like Satan's hooves, not horses.
Yeah.
But when the first record came out, all my friends were like, why are you so into horses and stuff? And it just became a running thing. And like I sent my record to Charlie, who's a friend of mine who runs a shop here called Crypt of the Wizard, and he was just like, I've already put out too many horse related things. I can't have another horse band. I was like, that's not what it's about. So I just kind of was like, I'm just going to lean into it and just put like hooves. Like
there's some market, the horse girl, metal girl thing. It's been all over, man. They're really into it. Yeah. So I guess So technically speaking, Thundering Hooves, like, it sounds like it's maybe predates, Vacuous in some ways.
Yeah, so some of the material definitely does, but I was just not resourceful enough or disciplined to like get it down, and yeah, so it kind of took Vacuous to fall into place for me to realize how to go about tracking something on my laptop, and you know yeah, even just arranging songs. Like I just had riffs floating around really, and we just jammed them without really structuring them.
And so you met Joe through a mutual friend, or was it Seth through Stiff Meds, or how did that work?
Yeah. So I kind of met Seth a little while before that, and he I was talking about like I want to do a metal band, and he's like, oh, me too. He was originally going to be in this band, and he said, oh, I know this guy who plays drums who's into all this stuff, and that's how I met Joe. And had a rehearsal, the three of us, and I mean, Joe and I clicked pretty instantly. I think Seth is still kind of he comes from like the hardcore punk world, and I think he was kind of obviously going to be approaching it through that lens. And I think he probably saw like, oh, these guys are going to go pretty deep down the extreme metal rabbit hole. I don't know if this is my thing. So we never really saw him after that. Still, like, yeah, we still hang out when we see him, but yeah, he did not want to be part of Vacuous.
So you guys are kind of like left to kind of maybe hang out and chat. What were maybe the first few records or maybe bands that you were like kind of talking about that you realized like, okay, I think we kind of have a similar background here, or at least like somewhat of a similar taste in music?
Yeah, well, we actually have really different backgrounds because, so like as I was saying, I went the more traditional route of discovering classic heavy metal and then making my way towards extreme metal, and then later on finding punk and stuff. Joe kind of came at it from a completely different angle. He got into the extreme stuff first. He listened to hip hop as a teenager.
Okay.
And he got into hardcore punk, Dead Kennedys, Black Flag stuff, and then got into death metal and black metal and stuff, and just grind or whatever. So like he didn't know, he was not familiar with any like. This is not me calling him a poser, by the way. It's just I think it's cool.
You heard it here first. Joe Chan. No,
Joe Chan's a poser. No, but he doesn't have that baggage of like having listened to traditional metal. So I think he comes at it from a really fresh perspective, because he's just kind of like, I like extremity because I like things that sound fucked up. So it was kind of like the common ground for us was death metal. And he had been jamming with a guy called Damien, who ended up being our first bass player. And Damien is like a huge grindcore guy. So that was kind of an element early on in the band. It was we didn't really form and say like, okay, let's be a death metal band in the style of like Autopsy or whatever. We're more like, okay, what kind of riffs do we want to have? What kind of vibes, what kind of atmospheres, what kind of emotions, and just kind of spent some time figuring it out in the practice room. And our first demo is it's kind of us just figuring it out. We didn't really intend for it to be something that'd be like widely circulated. It was just like for us to use as a reference. But yeah, I guess early on, yeah, like Autopsy, Dystopia, Incantation, Dragged into Sunlight, like those were kind of some of the ones we bonded on early on.
I can't wait for as an American, that new they got Dragged into Sunlight announced the tour, and I'm like, man, I never thought I would see that band. I'm glad they're kind of dipping their toe into a lot of stuff again.
Yeah. Are you sensitive to strobe lights and that kind of thing?
I'm not, but is this a kind of a common theme?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the only shows that I've had to leave before the end, and I was with my partner who's very sensitive to that, and it's like unrelenting, like
oh, boy,
sensory overload.
It's like already some of like the most like abrasive shit to hear. So to hear that it's like also visually stimulating in the same way.
Yeah, like I mean, I probably would have stayed to the end had I been on my own, but I was still like I felt like nauseous just being there, like because it's so loud, it's so fast, and then
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, I don't know. And it was like at the end of a festival where I'd just been hearing like I think the band before then was like Dead Congregation, so I was
Okay.
already like battered by then.
Well, I mean, on the topic of the UK, like, how do you feel like your scene is represented? Like, I'm assuming you've been going to shows for quite some time, and then with these projects, you've been involved directly with the scene. Have you noticed any trends when you first got involved? Where do you think it's at now?
It's hard to say. I mean, there's definitely more like space is being given to death metal as kind of a more legitimate thing. I think, obviously a lot of death metal comes from the UK in the early days, but then I think it kind of waned a bit and it sort of ended up being like a footnote to just metal in general. Like it you'd have a lot of metal festivals and maybe like the same two, three like token death metal UK bands would get booked. But now I feel like there is a bit more space and attention being given to it. Yeah, and there's some cool bands, like Coffin Mulch, Slime Lords, Mortuary Spawn, Jaundice. But on the other hand, I think there is this kind of tendency in the UK, and I mean, I'm not British, so I can say what I want, but of just like as soon as something is slightly cool to just be like, this is the greatest thing ever. So there's like this. There's been a bunch of articles saying like new wave of British death metal and all that, and I'm like, this is a bit much, guys. Like, we've got a good thing going, but like we're not there yet.
People got papers to write, I guess, so they need to. Geez. Well, I mean, even you've off air we talked about a little bit of traveling and such, but have you made it to many of the festivals that occur across the area? It seems like it's such a bucket list thing for me to do. Would it be to go overseas and maybe attend a festival in the UK or across Europe? There's just so many that I feel like have such an amazing sort of lineup or culture to it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I haven't been to many since COVID hit. I just kind of lost the habit, but I definitely used to. When I was younger, I would go to like the huge ones like Vacuous, Open Air, and Hellfest, which are just like, just general metal festivals. But one that I really enjoy and I probably would go back to is this one called Brutal Assault in the Czech
Oh,
Republic.
okay.
It's in this old, I guess, 19th century like fortress thing, and it's
Damn.
sort of like, yeah, the stage is like in the middle of it, and it's got all these little tunnels and stuff. It's cool. So like seeing Emperor in the
Yeah,
fortress is pretty
come on.
cool, for instance.
Any tips for people out there? Like, did you run into any issues with going to something as like big and daunting with a festival like that?
I mean that one's pretty chill, Brutal Assault. Like, I think anyone can go and have a good time. Yeah, I don't know. Like Wacken and Hellfest, they're just like pretty physically and mentally draining. And you kind of gotta be prepared to make some sacrifices in terms of like what you want to see. I mean, I'm sure it's the same if you go to like Maryland Death Fest where you've got like three bands that you want to see that are playing at the same time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean,
But yeah,
I've not been. I mean, I know they got in the Chicagoland area where I'm based. I mean, they have some like bigger, like Lollapalooza is a big one, and Riot Fest, and I haven't been to too many of those. But yeah, it's kind of like, all right, who do I want to see? I got to sacrifice one here, or like you get pulled away, and
yeah.
maybe the sound isn't like as good as you had hoped it'd be on this stage or that stage. But
Yeah, like I mean, I haven't been to Hellfest in France in ages, but I think last time I went, I had a choice between Slayer on the main stage, the Death to All the Death, whatever that band is called, on in one of the tents, and then I think it was either Crowbar or Cro-Mags on like the hardcore stage. And I was like,
I guess
why are you doing this to me?
Yeah, I as many times as I've seen Crowbar, I'd still probably go Crowbar.
Yeah, I've seen them. We ended up going to the Death one, which in hindsight was probably a mistake, but because I'd not seen those songs performed live before.
That makes sense.
But yeah, nowadays I'd go see Crowbar probably.
Just I mean, the riffs on riffs.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have a favorite record?
Favorite record by Crowbar? I don't know. I mean, Broken Glass is pretty good. Favorite song and riff by theirs is I Feel the Burning Sun, I think.
Hell yeah. We
On
did
the, yeah.
that's the record itself is okay. That is my favorite riff. We talked to Sammy about it like a while back. And it's like
Nice.
one of my favorite music videos ever because I think
They're just at the bar chilling.
yeah, it's hilarious. Like it doesn't just all right, we're just gonna go to you can film us. We'll be there. You can film it. I love that.
It doesn't go anywhere. Like when I watched it for the first time, I'm like, okay, they're in the bar. Something messed up's gonna happen, and then it's just like it's just 3 more minutes of them just like,
watching the Saints game, like or whatever. Like it's just so funny.
Yeah.
On the topic of riffs, though, again, this might be a loaded question, but what to you makes a riff as like a musician or a listener? What draws you in? What does it need? What riffs do you look for?
Tough one. I guess like when you kind of reach, our stage of just like you're kind of terminally gone in terms of like your brain thinks just in terms of riffs. Then it kind of becomes its own language, and like I'm not sophisticated enough to enjoy poetry, but I imagine what I get from a riff is maybe what someone would get from like a verse of poetry. So which means like there's lots of different styles and ways to express ideas, but it's also like what I mean by that is a riff on its own is cool, but it's also how it's arranged. I think that's like 50% of what makes a great riff. Because like a line of a poem can be impactful on its own, but it's also kind of how it sits within that bit of text is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with that said, I'm also, if we're just being like very kind of technical, if you do a riff and you bend a string, like I'm already impressed.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about Crowbar. What are we doing? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like that. Like if you do that in a riff, like I'm sold.
Yeah. As kind of the sole guitar player in this band for at least like the inception of it, do you feel like maybe your definition or maybe how you would approach a riff changed when you maybe work with someone like Ezra, like on something like that? Like how has like an additional guitar player changed the way that you look at a riff or maybe how it's composed or arranged?
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole idea of getting a second guitar player in the band is because I started writing parts that had harmonies, and so it's sort of like you realize that the riff itself is kind of the core, and you want to like build stuff around it and just add other facets to it. So I think that's definitely a consideration, having 2 guitars, and utilizing that. It's not just to like add like thickness to your sound. It's also you want to be playing on that. So that's now that we are a 5-piece, that does affect the songwriting. And I think about it, I'm like, okay, well, I could be doing this rhythm and Ezra could be doing this little melody here. And one of my favorite songwriters is Greg McIntosh from Paradise Lost, and so he utilizes that super well. And it's like there's a lot of leads, but I wouldn't say there are any guitar solos. And I think we've kind of like, as the band has gone on, we've started to incorporate like lead melodies a lot more.
I do like that this the album starts with "In His Blood," and I would imagine that song might be the first song that probably came to mind when you were writing the record. So you're just like, here's the statement, like we're just going to get right into it. Are there riffs on this record that you are maybe especially proud of, where you're like, fuck, man, that's just, or even something that Ezra would have come to the table with, like, man, that's one of them. That's one of them riffs.
Trying to think. Yeah, in His Blood, I don't even really think of that one so much as a riff song, because it's more just like, it's more of a punk song, and I don't necessarily think punk songs need to have riffs in the same way that metal songs do. It's more of like you're using the guitar more as a percussive instrument. But that song was written in reaction, sort of like not in reaction to, but I just wanted to do a complete 180 from Dreams of Dysphoria, which is this like meandering death doom thing, and do something really direct and spontaneous. But in terms of riffs that I'm really proud of, the song Flesh Parade, the fourth song on the album, actually some of those riffs in the intro, in the verse, those riffs I've actually had lying around since like me and my brother were trying to do Thundering Hooves.
Oh, really?
So like, yeah, some of those riffs are like ancient, and I just never knew what to do with them. And then when like Thundering Hooves kind of crystallized as a sort of black heavy metal thing, then I just put it to one side. And then when we were writing as well, it just kind of clicked with me. It's like, oh, I have these riffs. I've not used them, and I think they're killer. And finding kind of a place for them and for it to actually like click within the album, that was like really satisfying.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, you're just kind of sitting on something and it finds maybe new life in something you're currently working on.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I'm sure when I would have been like 8 or 9 years ago when I first,
Yeah.
the riffs, I've obviously reworked them or something and fit into Vacuous, but like obviously I would not have, if you told me like, oh, these riffs are going to end up like on a Relapse album, like I would have been like, nah, what are you talking about?
That's so cool. And I, just having read up on, maybe some of your influences as well, I'm sure it's like, I mean, to be signed to that label, some of the work they've put out, with like Disembowelment, some of those records is fucking insane. And, huge congrats on that. Huge congrats on this record. But I part of that I feel like maybe is owed to a record store kind of in where you guys are located, correct?
Yeah. So that would be, there's a shop in East London called Crypt of the Wizard, which is used to, at one point was the only heavy metal shop in London. I think there's another one now, but and Charlie's just been a supporter of us since day one. And the studio we recorded the record in is called Holy Mountain Studios, and it's actually in the basement of the record store. So he was kind of aware of us recording that. He came in and like heard some bits. And I think that the way it happened was one of the guys from Relapse was on some business trip to London and stopped by the shop and just kind of in passing was like, hey, are there any good UK bands going on? And he said, oh, well, there's this band Vacuous that has just recorded an album downstairs. And then, it was just kind of like he mentioned that to me and Joe and was like, I could just email them. And we're just like, okay, just kind of as a dare, like, all right, like not really registering that they might be a thing. And then he sent the email and he's like, he just came back, he texted us both like, yeah, they're interested. And we're like,
damn,
oh shit.
Hell yeah. Well, and I don't want to dismiss like the work you guys have done either. I mean, it could have sucked and they would have just been like, nah, we're fine. But, I think the work speaks for itself. So like whenabouts did that connection form? Around 2023 then?
Maybe early last year. And I think Charlie had kind of when he heard the record and he was like, okay, because he was originally we wanted him to put it out because he has his own label and he released a split that we put out with Mortuary Spawn. But then I think he heard it and he was like, okay, I'd love to release it, but I think this maybe has potential for a wider audience. So he actually sent it out to a few other labels. But Relapse was the first one to come back to us. And when I don't think we would have, had it just been down to us, I don't think we would have reached out to them because it would have felt so out of reach. But then when they came back to us, it was like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Because I mean, for me, I think what sets them apart is they have this kind of experimental edge to them. I mean, they obviously like they've done loads of classic stuff, you know, like the Incantation and whatever. But what I remember when I was a teenager getting into metal is like when I would see the Relapse sticker on a record, you know, and it was like Mastodon, Dillinger Escape Plan and stuff. I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting and different. So yeah, it was like, it was really cool for that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, the work speaks for itself, but I think there is something to that where, you know, kind of like we were talking about artwork earlier, where like, wow, okay, that's a very striking image. Who put this out? If I see Relapse, I am going to be like more prone to checking something out just based on my, you know, my relationship with that label. But you know, it says a lot about that record store too. They're fully dedicated to like heavy metal and extreme music, or
Yeah, in a very in a way that I think is unique to themselves. Yeah, he has pretty eclectic taste. He's very into like dungeon synth stuff and just kind of like stuff that is just too weird to exist, really. He puts together a festival called Life After Death, which yeah, you should check out. Which is just like the band that played right. So we did our release show there last month, and the band that played right before us was this act called Frog Concert. Have you heard that? Have you heard of them?
But I'm gonna check it out as soon as we end this call.
Yeah, it's like so it's like two dudes. I think they're from Wisconsin, who like are in these like giant frog suits, and they just play dungeon synth, and that's it for like. And so Charlie was like, you know what? I've got to spend however many £1,000s to fly these guys over for a one-off show. So like that's the kind of character he is.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed. Like I'd live fairly close to the border, and I wouldn't have guessed there's like a 2-piece dungeon synth frog thing. That's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, check out Frog Concert.
You know, on the topic of like record stores, you know, even reading up on some of like the lyrical concepts and themes of this record, it seems like maybe a lot of the media that you all consume has influenced, you know, some topics on the record, you know, as far as like movies and just, you know, even just kind of doom scrolling and being on your phone and seeing some like pretty visceral things. Are you a consumer of media? Do you collect things at all? Are you a big watcher of movies or?
Yeah, a bit. I would say that's definitely more Joe's domain. He's definitely like the aesthetics guy in the band. He's the horror movie fan. So yeah, I mean, the overall theme was kind of driven by him. And so the title of the album came from him, as you're saying, doom scrolling. And I think this was actually from a few years ago, but he came across a post on Reddit, which is about a guy had murdered someone else in like a gang killing, and then posted a picture of himself to Twitter, like standing in that guy's like in a pool of that guy's blood. And then through that Twitter post, whatever gang he was beefing with, like found him and killed him. So it's just like this really insane thing. But because it's like posted on social media, it's so like there's something so casual and like arresting about it. And kind of you're just like when you see, I imagine if you were just scrolling through Twitter and saw that, you'd feel like you were kind of like peeking into this insane world, like kind of in a voyeuristic way that, you know, something I shouldn't be seeing this, you know, right now. And then you can just put your phone down and you're like, okay, gotta go pick up my kids from soccer or whatever. I don't have kids, but you get my point. So that was kind of the idea. And then yeah, with the album art, the cover, we kind of wanted to recreate that in a really literal sense, hence the soy sauce and everything.
With you know, with the record and the sounds on the record, I feel like, you know, we've kind of talked a little bit about, you know, Joe coming from a different background and you yourself coming from maybe more of like a death metal, black metal background, or even traditional. I feel like this is a record that uniquely it could have only been made by the people involved. Like I have not heard anything like it. You know, like it feels uniquely yourselves. And, you know, when people turn it on, and it, it's definitely been making the rounds. You've been doing interviews. What do you hope people get from In His Blood? Like, what do you hope people will listen to it and say connect with?
I don't, expect anyone to think it's like boundary pushing or revolutionary in any way. But like you said, I think hopefully people will listen to it and be like, this is an honest record that's like a reflection of these five guys. And that's all we were aiming for, really. Is just like just being, not making the band like a stylistic exercise of like, okay, this is how these are some death metal songs that we can write in the style of X, Y, and Z. It's more like, okay, we like these things. How do we make it work as a unit within the framework of death metal? And yeah, no, you're right. I think like everyone had an impact on it. Like our drummer Max, he has a really noticeable style, and I think we recorded without a click track this time around, and which just meant Max pushed us to play way faster than we needed to be playing, and I think that ended up influencing the whole vibe of the record, basically.
Whether in life or in music, I believe I've heard you guys are working on a new record you're writing. What do you hope to accomplish this year, whether in life, music? I would love to know maybe what sorts of things you have working on this year.
Well, yeah, so we're going on tour at the end of next week. We're doing a UK tour and playing Ireland for the first time, which is going to be kind of cool. And then we've got some European like festival stuff later on in the year. But yeah, we're already working on our next record. It's always this thing where like when you're sitting on something, it kind of crushes your creative energy a little bit. So it's like we kind of tried to write some more stuff last year, but we're just like, oh man, but then having the album like be released, and it's like it kind of reignites that in you a bit. So yeah, we've been pretty prolific in the past like couple months. So hopefully it would be nice to wrap up, the writing of that this year. Maybe look to record early next year. Yeah, don't hold me to those timelines because that's not worked out for us in the past. But yeah, and it's like without giving too much away, it's definitely going to be another evolution. As with this one, we didn't really expect everyone to be on board, and we don't expect everyone to be on board with the next one. So yeah,
you kind of like hinted you're going on a UK tour with Calvary, is that right, from France?
Yeah. So they're I guess a blackened crust hardcore punk band. We played with them last year at a festival in Bristol and just hit it off with them. But yeah, we just dig their vibe. And actually, if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't know if you've looked them up and looked at their album covers, but that was actually their covers were actually an inspiration for the artwork for In His Blood. And I've told them that. It's not a secret, but they have a lot of their covers are like the immediate aftermath of something of a violent act that's happened. Like I think their demo, it's like a flail with like a bunch of blood that's like in a shower or something. So it's kind of like similar idea, but we just want to execute it a bit differently. So we just kind of gel with them, a different style, but I think it's like a similar energy to us. Yeah, we kind of wanted to have that be the vibe. We've let promoters kind of choose opening acts for us in the past, and it's been like slam and brutal death metal bands and stuff. And it's like there's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's just like that's not what we're doing. So
that's cool that you get to like actually connect on that level. And I mean, the fact that it has a direct inspiration too is also great. And then Killtown Death Fest in Copenhagen this September as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's a bucket list one for all of us. I mean, yeah, I've never been, but the guy who runs it, Killtown Bookings, like he's done in the past decade. He's like brought so many bands to Europe, so I think he's had such an impact on death metal in Europe. Yeah, it'll be cool. I mean, a lot of us are big fans of Portal, and they're headlining, so that'll be cool.
That'll be so sick. Any Thundering Hooves in the future?
Thundering Hooves, I don't have anything written, and we haven't really actively tried to do anything in a while. Daniel plays in a doom band called Horror. We'll do it at some point when the time is right. In terms of other projects, I play bass for a band called Bastard Mycosis, which is just Max and Ezra from Vacuous. It's just like really silly, down-tuned, kind of undergang, like cerebral rock
Okay.
type
Sick.
death metal. So yeah, we only started playing live recently. And yeah, I've got another. But we just do bands with each other, like the same guys. There's another band that myself, Joe, Max, and Stan, our producer, like we recorded an EP together last year, kind of in our downtime, waiting for In His Blood to come out. So if we can be bothered to finish it, that'll come out someday. It's like kind of Angel Corpse worship type project, just really fast and stupid.
Do you have like do you warm up on some of these live shows? It just made me think, like, do you have a warm up riff? Do you warm up with anything before you start? Do kind of a mic check or anything?
In terms of riffs, yeah, mine are really bad though. I just like I either play Dragon Out by Sleep just because I know it annoys everyone in the band. Yeah, fuck 'em. Or I'll play like the two Hatebreed riffs I know just because I'm like, this is so inappropriate. I'm gonna do it.
Hell yeah, I love that. You'll get somebody. I bet you're looking out there and somebody like you'll immediately someone turn from the bar or like. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but we typically end the show with maybe some recommendations of things we've been listening to, things we've been checking out. Could be heavy or non. I would love to hear about it.
So we mentioned Portal recently. So because we're playing with them at Killtown, but we've got a few other dates that we can be playing with them. Some have been announced, others haven't. But yeah, I've been kind of diving back into them, and they're a band that I've been aware of for a really long time, but they've only really clicked in the past couple of years because it's not riffs in the traditional sense. It's not, you're not going to get much out of it the first time you listen to it, but it's like you really need to put in the time to understand what's going on, and then it clicks and you're like, oh my God. So yeah, I've been digging into Portal a bit recently. There's a band from France called Fange, Fange. Do you know them?
I don't.
So they started off as like a sludge band with kind of maybe hardcore-y influences, and then a few albums in, they went in a more death metal direction. And then after that, their drummer left, and they were just like, "Fuck it, let's go industrial. Like, let's become Godflesh."
Yeah.
And now they've kind of like so they put out an album, at least one album every year for the past 5 years. They're super prolific. It's not all like amazing, but their albums are short, so it's not a huge commitment. But they've just put one out last month, which is kind of like condenses what they've done over the past few albums. So they've still got a drum machine, still kind of got that industrial thing, but they've gone back to this kind of more death metal type riffing. But it's just super weird. It's all sung in French. So yeah, check them out.
I'm gonna add one more. In His Blood, Vacuous. It is out now through Relapse Records. Don't be a chump. Get a copy of it. It's available now. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Where can people follow Vacuous for any updates on shows or music?
Of all the platforms, we're most active on Instagram. So that's at Vacuous Death. Similarly, we're on Bandcamp. So that's vacuousdeath.bandcamp.com.
Perfect. You can follow us in any of the links below, Riff Worship Pod, blah, blah, blah. But for myself, for Michael, for Swindle and Dylan, wherever they are, you've been listening to Riff Worship. We'll see you next time. Bye.